and we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or, in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms, you will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Hey, buddies. Hey, buddies. That was the President of the United States of America in a videoed address to the nation posted on his Twitter account at 2 o'clock in the morning, declaring war on Iran, though he was specific not to say those words, for the reason of accomplishing regime change in a foreign nation, which is crazy. Normally, you have years of manufactured consent where you try to get the people on your side to make the idea of going to war more popular before you send American citizens to their death abroad. But that hasn't happened this time. And usually, you veil your intentions of changing the regime with some pretense of accomplishing democracy for the local people whose regime you're changing. None of that happened today either. If you weren't aware, at 2 o'clock in the morning, President Trump posted the announcement a couple of hours before that. The United States and Israel launched a missile offensive on the nation of Iran with the explicit intended purpose of accomplishing the change of the Iranian regime. That's awesome. This is why the DoD was being so aggressive with Anthropic to remove their AI guardrails, which they refused because it's nuke trigger happy. That's true. It is very scary that Anthropic, who is the AI company that makes Claude and has probably some of the most sophisticated AI agents on the market right now, one of their red lines has been you're not allowed to use Anthropic products to spy on the American people, and you're not allowed to use Anthropic products to autonomously target and pull the trigger on lethal systems against enemies, foreign or domestic, which is just to say killer robots. We don't want AI to control missile systems. And the Department of Defense, now known as the Department of War, said, actually, those red lines are unacceptable to us. If you don't change those red lines and allow us to autonomously target people with your product and use your product to spy on American citizens, we will blacklist you and make it incredibly difficult for you to get any kind of government contract with your AI company. So that's crazy. And now they're facing a ban from the administration because they have a degree of conscience. Yeah, it's scary. The smallest modicum of morals is too much for this administration. Any rebut of their power, no matter how small, is seen as a threat and has to be dealt with, which is precisely why we struck Iran today. We are at war with Iran. At war with Iran. So far, no troops. We have no boots on the ground. That's not really the Trump administration's MO. We kind of always want to do like a quick attack and then pull back and declare victory, the same way that we did in Venezuela with Maduro. However, the Trump administration has been signaling all day today that this is going to be a much more prolonged effort than the operation was in Venezuela, and that we could be performing military operations against Iran for a week or more. It reminds you of the power dynamics in some churches. Whoops. We could be performing military operations against Iran for a week or more. Iran is doing their best to thoroughly dissuade the United States from availing themselves of that option by hitting not just U.S. assets in the region, but U.S.-aligned assets in the region the whole day. Iran has been bombing everybody, everywhere, all day. In a very strong show of force to make the United States and Israel think twice about more attacks against Iran. So that's fun. In the U.S.'s attack on Iran, so far the death count is in the hundreds. I've seen numbers ranging between 200 and 400 so far. And we're going to get into some of the technical details of it here in just a minute. But so far, just in the United States' volley against Iran, the death count is in the hundreds. Iran has been bombing countries like Kuwait and Qatar and the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Israel, particularly Tel Aviv, the military assets that are implanted among civilian infrastructure in Tel Aviv. And so the death count certainly is going to be much higher by the end of the day, but I haven't been seeing a lot more information coming out since around 1 or 2-ish. We're kind of in a holding pattern to see what new things happen. So we're going to talk about some tweets here. Let's see. I've curated my Twitter feed with a lot of accounts that I feel like are pretty reliable. Had to tune out for a second. Is it true Israel and the U.S. bombed an Iranian education center full of students? It 100%. I'm not going to say 100% on anything that we're going to talk about today. This is a quickly developing situation in Iran right now, and there is misinformation flying all over the internet. Elon Musk's X is particularly susceptible to misinformation, especially about U.S. enemies. And so I wouldn't say anything is 100% so far that we talk about today. But all signs seem to point to multiple outlets from multiple countries have confirmed that either a U.S. or Israeli attack did hit a couple of elementary schools in the Mendab region in southern Iran, and the death count is over 100 now. People have been killed in those elementary schools. It's going to take a while before we understand all of the details. We still don't even have confirmation yet whether or not that was an attack from Israel or the United States, or whether or not the schools were intentionally targeted. Kuwait International Airport also was struck, and we know that one, or like I said, we know to the extent that we know anything today. But we know that attack on the Kuwait International Airport was meant for a United States military base nearby the airport. It was a drone attack, and the drone attack was deflected, and it ended up hitting the airport. The Iranian attack on the military airbase was intended for the military airbase, not the airport, but the airbase's intercepting missiles to try to stop the drone from hitting the airbase, successfully diverted it away from the airbase, but hit the Kuwait International Airport. So we're just going to go over some details here that I've curated throughout the day, and I'm going to give you kind of some commentary in between a bunch of these tweets that you see in all these tabs. Dropsite is one of the best sources for information on what's happening in the Middle East, particularly in this conflict, particularly what's happening in Gaza. Attacking without restraint, without precision, causes unnecessary deaths, 100%. And that is certainly big attributes that define today's attacks. Without restraint and without precision. In the 12-day war, whenever the United States bombed military facilities in Iran that were supposed to be refining uranium, like military facilities in Fordow, they used... Israel and the United States used planes that flew over for specific human-guided, targeted strikes that were not meant to be, indiscriminate killing. Surface to surface missiles are much less accurate than a bomb dropped from a piloted plane. And so today's strikes are particularly, the United States has definitely tried to not be as careful as they were in the 12-day war. What's really scary is after the 12-day war, it is called the 12-day war because Iran retaliated for 12 full days after the United States bombed those military facilities in Iran by striking Israel a bunch. And Israel's supply of THAAD interceptor missiles, which are supplied to them by the United States, was severely depleted during that time. It's estimated that the U.S. supply of THAAD interceptor missiles was depleted by 25%. And those stockpiles have not been successfully replenished yet. This is part of the reason why General Kane was leaking before these attacks on Iran that the U.S. military was worried about attacking Iran because we had not yet replenished a lot of those resources in the region, and we're not as prepared as we were for the 12-day war to put up a defense against Iranian attacks. Iran is hitting targets all over the region, which they did not do in the 12-day war. They're hitting their targets all over the region, and they've been hitting them, like I said, all day. Iran put out a statement saying that the resources that they've been using to strike targets in the region today are their junk bombs and missiles, and from some of the footage that we've been seeing, that seems to be kind of the case. And that Iran has much more sophisticated military technology waiting to be used should the United States and Israel decide to start striking again. Iran has been trying to deter the United States and Israel from doing that. So we already have expended a lot of resources just to defend ourselves from the kind of like second-rate munitions from Iran. Lord only knows what it's going to be like trying to defend ourselves from their higher precision, more sophisticated military technology over the next week, which is what, like I said, the Trump administration is kind of signaling how long we plan on attacking Iran for. So yeah, resources are depleted, and I'm worried that we are not going to have nearly the level of resources to be able to defend people like we did in the 12-day war, because Iran is attacking today at a much faster, much more aggressive clip than they did in the 12-day war, and we depleted, like I said, 25% of our THAAD interceptors just in the 12-day war. So we'll see how long this goes on for, how long the United States can sustain this level of military aggression against Iran, but it probably is not looking great. So like I said, Dropsite is a really high quality source of journalism, especially as it pertains to the Middle East. So a lot of the reporting that I'm relying on today is coming from Dropsite News. I've been seeing a lot of stuff in a lot of different places, but it's going to be sketchy. The stuff that we talk about today, things are still developing, and so nothing is 100%. We are getting the closest to being most certain about some of the details by relying on reliable sources like Dropsite. Dropsite says the Iranian Red Crescent reports 201 Iranians killed and 747 Iranians injured. This was posted at 12:41 today, so this is old information at this point. Iranian media says at least 86 of the dead were at a girls' elementary school struck by the United States and Israel. That 86 number has definitely increased. Al Jazeera just recently reported that number is above 100 at this point, I think. Yes. Breaking Al Jazeera reports death toll in Israeli attack on Iranian elementary school rises to 108 now, which is horrific. The unprovoked combined U.S.-Israeli assault has targeted government buildings, senior political leaders, the supreme leader's residence, military leaders, military infrastructure, air defenses, and nuclear-related facilities across 24 different provinces all over the Iranian area. Iran has fired missiles and drones at U.S. military bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE, and launched projectiles that struck Israel. Iraq, Jordan, and the UAE have partially or fully closed their airspace. Explosions reported in Bahrain, Kuwait, Dubai, and Doha. So, like I said, Iran is striking all over the region in an effort to deter the U.S. and U.S.-aligned forces from continuing to assault Iran further. This line here, where it talks about targeting the supreme leader's residence, a big controversy throughout the day has been whether or not the Ayatollah Khamenei, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Apparently his name is very easy to mispronounce by like Westerners. And so I'm not going to say his name very often, but the Ayatollah is the supreme leader of Iran. He is the religious and political leader of Iran. He has been one of the largest moderating forces, keeping Iran from being more aggressive with particularly Israel and the United States for years now. And if he is truly dead, which many sources are reporting at this point, it definitely is going to be a very bad day. It spells not good things for the future of this conflict, as, like I said, the Ayatollah was certainly a moderating influence on the hardline, more militant members of the Iranian government and leadership. So now that he's gone, he certainly will be quickly replaced, and whoever he is replaced by will certainly probably be more radical than he was. So I think Israel and the United States are counting the death of the Ayatollah, if it has truly happened, as a victory, and I think that it's probably a loss for everyone in this situation. At least 70, and this reporting is from 10:40 a.m. At least 70 people, including some 60 children, were killed when U.S. and Israeli strikes hit the. But Trump said he was one of the most evil men who ever lived. Yeah. Like I said, sounds similar to the rise of ISIS. Yeah, Israel has exactly spelled out that they would love to happen to Iran, a similar kind of thing that happened to Libya, or Iraq, or Afghanistan, which has led to the rise of huge migrant crises all over the region, especially in Europe, and has also led to the rise of really scary militant Islamist organizations like ISIS, like Al Qaeda, and so destabilizing and destroying the political infrastructure of Iran certainly is not going to lead to good things for the region, I wouldn't think. Like I said, either the U.S. or Israel, we're not sure which, or maybe it was both, struck this elementary school in Minab in southern Iran, according to the Fars News. The attack reportedly struck during school hours with about 170 girls inside. Video shows families screaming and digging through rubble as rescue crews searched for survivors. Tehran has vowed retaliation. Dr. Fouad Izzadi of the University of Tehran told Al Jazeera, "We are fighting the Epstein class that either rapes little girls or bombs little girls." Yeah, when you kill the people who keep certain groups in check, woof, 100%. Additionally, I think a lot of the calculation from both the United States and Israel is that by striking Iran, we will decapitate the political leadership in Iran, which has been legitimately oppressive to its people, and therefore the people will rise up in revolution and will overthrow the leadership, the tyrannical leadership of Iran, and will accomplish freedom for themselves. If anything, interventionism in foreign nations has never accomplished that result. It usually accomplishes a rallying around the flag effect of the people whenever your country is attacked by foreign outsiders. Usually dissenters who are criticizing the current leadership of your country shut up and start picking up guns to defend theirs and their families' survivals. Whenever you blow up schools full of children, I don't think that is going to incentivize the population to rise up against their own leadership. I think it certainly is only going to accomplish more resentment and hatred for the United States and our continued military presence in the region, which spells bad things for the future of military personnel in the area. Something did need to happen, but don't think it's this. I mean, the thing that probably would have helped the most is a normalization of relations with Iran by working to lift its people out of poverty. The sanctions on Iran have been brutal and repressive, and by working to lift the sanctions and lift its people out of poverty, you eliminate some of the pressure that is on people who disagree with the leadership in Iran, and therefore they are going to be able to be more vocal about their disagreement and leadership with Iran, which incentivizes more organic transformation of the political ideology of the country. Attacking countries like this almost never leads to the outcome that imperial powers are usually hoping happens. Honestly, the thing that the Trump administration and Israel are saying that they want to happen is that the people of Iran, throws off the shackles of their tyrannical oppressors and liberates themselves. They keep on saying that, but it seems more like what the United States and especially Israel, what they want to accomplish is a complete destabilization of the region. Something like an Iranian civil war, in the same way that the Syrian civil war destroyed and ravaged Syria, and the Libyan civil war destroyed and ravaged Libya, making those regions hellish, war-torn landscapes with different, militias trying to control and dominate their fiefs. But by splitting the population up into essentially cartel-run fiefdoms, makes them far easier to exploit and extract resources from, or in the future, if your intention is to invade those countries, makes them easier to invade. So I think that the most logical outcome to this attack is that Iran becomes destabilized, falls into some kind of civil war, and goes the route that Syria and Libya have gone, which will lead to an unimaginable amount of human suffering in the region. And I think that is not only something that Israel and the United States are okay with, but kind of want. Iranians have tried to overthrow their government 8 times now. Yeah, I mean, a good amount. And unfortunately, the United States has been the people who have been in charge of, who have been controlling the figureheads that those Iranians were rising up against several times. And we are primarily responsible for the Ayatollah seizing power during the Iranian Revolution, whenever the Iranians overthrew the Shah, and therefore are responsible for like the tyrannical, oppressive leadership that we criticize ourselves all of the time. I just posted a clip from the stream yesterday where I talked about a lot of that history in Iran. I posted that on my YouTube channel. I would recommend that you go and watch it if you want to learn a bit more about that history. Like I said, Al Jazeera is updating now that the death toll in these Israeli or American attacks on these schools has reached 108 now. Ayatollah Khamenei, his body has been found and he's confirmed dead by Reuters. Reuters is getting this information from Israeli officials. This is Ken Klippenstein reporting this, who is a fantastic reporter. I highly recommend you go follow Ken Klippenstein if you do not already follow him. Oh man, my chat is messed up. Hold on, let's fix this real quick. Chat wide. Whoops. There we go, buddy. Highly recommend that you go follow Ken Klippenstein if you do not already follow him. Ken Klippenstein is pulling this from Reuters. He considers this account to be credible. So far as I've seen, the only sources confirming that the Ayatollah is dead are Israelis. And now Donald Trump, we'll read his whole statement here. Donald Trump has also now claimed that the Ayatollah was killed in these assaults. The Israelis are saying that they hit the facility where the Ayatollah was hiding something like 30 times with ballistic missiles, and therefore are very confident that he has been killed. Iran has maintained that the Ayatollah is not dead and is directing operations from the ground in hiding currently in Iran. Although several times throughout the day, people were like, oh, the Ayatollah is going to come on and say something, and he never has. So, like I said, lots of Israeli sources are confirming that the Ayatollah is dead. President Trump is now claiming that the Ayatollah is dead. And supposedly Israel, while their reporting is usually not very accurate, whenever it comes to, their targeted assassination attempts, which they perform often, apparently their reporting on their assassination attempts are usually pretty accurate. And so people are inclined to think that the Ayatollah is actually dead now, which is, as I said earlier, highly unfortunate, because the Ayatollah has played a moderating influence on Iran for years. A huge part of the Iranian military hardliners have been wanting to pursue nuclear weapons in Iran. The Ayatollah is the one who declared a fatwa against the development of nuclear weapons, making it like a sin in the Shia Muslim religion to pursue nuclear weapons. and has been working to keep the more militant hardliners in his government restrained from aggressively pursuing nuclear weapons. Honestly, that seems like the wrong strategy to me. I think that if the Iranians had nukes, none of this would have happened today, and they would have actually been able to accomplish independence for themselves. More nukes seems like a bad thing, but the United States and its interventionist aggression makes it really necessary for countries to very aggressively pursue nuclear weapons in order to deter foreign intervention in their country so that they can actually focus on building up their infrastructure and increasing the quality of material conditions for people in their country, the way that North Korea has and the way that North Korea is doing, and China. So I think it was probably a mistake. I think Iran probably would have been better off if they had found nuclear weapons a long time ago. But the Ayatollah, by all reports, was the person who was moderating the pursuit of nuclear weapons in Iran. And if he is truly dead, is no longer going to be able to play that moderating influence anymore. So it's a thing of which one is saying the truth and which one is saying lies to boost morale. 100%. Like I said, I'm inclined to believe the Israeli government are monsters. But whenever a monster is bragging about killing someone, you're kind of, it would make them look really weak if the Ayatollah all of a sudden appeared alive. So I'm inclined to believe Israel here. We're going to read President Trump's statement. Breaking news: President Donald Trump claims Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead, saying U.S. intelligence worked closely with Israel to locate and target him in a joint U.S.-Israeli operation. He suggests additional senior Iranian leaders were also killed in the strikes. By all accounts, the Iranian Minister of Defense was also killed in these strikes, and the Ayatollah's son-in-law and daughter-in-law were also killed in these strikes. Trump urged Iranian military and security forces to seek immunity and to merge with what he called Iranian patriots to restore the country. He also said heavy bombing will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. We're going to read Trump's statement here in full. Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans and those people who, from many countries throughout the world, that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. He was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, and working closely with Israel, there was not a thing he or the other leaders that have been killed along with him could do. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. It's also so insane for the President of the United States to constantly be inciting the Iranian people to rise up against their government political leaders. This is the single greatest chance for the Iranian people to take back their country. We are hearing that many of their IRGC military and other security and police forces no longer want to fight and are looking for immunity from us. Okay. As I said last night, now they can have immunity. Later, they only get death. Hopefully, the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves. That process should soon be starting, in that not only the death of Khamenei, but the country has been, in only one day, very much destroyed and even obliterated. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So that is Trump again signaling that the United States, this is not going to be a quick in and out operation. The United States is going to keep up military action on Iran for a long duration of time. The longer this goes on, the more likely it is that U.S. military personnel are going to be killed in the region. How the U.S. will react whenever U.S. citizens are the ones getting blown up, I don't know. Certainly, more than 80% of the U.S. population is against going to war with Iran. This is dramatically unpopular. It's hard to imagine why Trump wouldn't have waited until after the midterms to do this, because this is going to be very politically detrimental to him and to all Republicans who now are the party that is the face of a tremendously unpopular war with Iran. The longer it goes on, the more likely it is that military personnel are going to die, and Republicans will be the face of those deaths for the entirety of the American population, should they happen. That's going to give them an extreme disadvantage, not only in these primaries, but in the midterms in the fall, if we're still at war by then. So I don't... People are speculating behind the scenes. People have speculated for a while that maybe Israel has some kind of dirt on Donald Trump. Donald Trump was extremely close with Jeffrey Epstein. By many credible accounts released in the Epstein files, Donald Trump participated in some of the despicable things that Jeffrey Epstein was getting up to. And Jeffrey Epstein was working as an agent of Israel, of Mossad, and it seems like was recording footage of the despicable acts that were happening in his residences and using that as blackmail to either get money from people or to manipulate them into giving him favorable business deals. If the Israeli Mossad is truly using sexual blackmail from people like Jeffrey Epstein, and they have sexual blackmail on Donald Trump, it would make a lot more sense why Donald Trump is acting so erratically and so against his own best interests here. By all accounts, people in the cabinet, the Epstein-Israel connection was legit. Oh, the Epstein-Israel connection is super legit. Not though in the way of Jeffrey Epstein being an agent of the Mossad in Israel, but rather the Mossad and Israel being agents of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein... Gross. Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire and used his massive wealth to strongly influence governments all over the world. Was very, very involved. Dropsite has a bunch of incredible reporting on Jeffrey Epstein's covert activities in countries all over the world, seemingly at the behest of the CIA in America and also Mossad in Israel. Seemingly his wealth and influence made it so that Jeffrey Epstein's interests were also in the interests of Israel, but really was more like Mossad was operating on behalf and for the benefit of Jeffrey Epstein, not necessarily the other way around, because their interests were aligned so much of the time. It looked a lot like they were working for each other, and so Jeffrey Epstein might have shared sexual blackmail material with the Mossad and Israel so that they could use that as leverage in political negotiations with political rivals. But it is inaccurate to act like Jeffrey Epstein was a mere agent operating within the infrastructure of Mossad or the CIA. It looks a lot more like Jeffrey Epstein was just so wealthy and influential that the CIA and the Mossad were, in a lot of circumstances, really working for Jeffrey Epstein. And so people speculate that maybe Israel has some kind of sexual blackmail material on Donald Trump, and that is why he is acting so against his interests, so on behalf of Israel. Going to war with Iran benefits no one. It has very little benefit for the United States. It has absolutely no benefit whatsoever for the U.S.-aligned powers in the region. The only actor in the situation that the destruction of Iran benefits is Israel. Israel's primary objective for years has been what they call the Greater Israel Project. We just saw Tucker Carlson do an incredible interview with Mike Huckabee, who is the U.S. ambassador to Israel, where Mike Huckabee literally said he would have no issue with Israel in pursuit of their Greater Israel Project, militarily invading their neighbors like Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Syria and Iraq and Jordan. The Greater Israel Project goes back to Old Testament prophecies and promises made to Abraham that his future generations would control the land from, and the language in the Bible is ambiguous, but has been broadly interpreted, especially by the Israelis, as a promise to Abraham that his future generations would control the land from the River Nile in Egypt to the River Euphrates in Iraq. And so the Greater Israel Project has been, for generations now, to militarily conquer and control that land from the Nile to the Euphrates. And lots of, Israeli psychopaths go even further than that. Every other country, we've completely obliterated and destroyed Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria now in the region. We have brought Egypt under our control. We've brought almost all of the North African Muslim nations under our control. We have made alliances with countries like Saudi Arabia and Oman and the UAE and Qatar to bring them under our control. Yemen is another country that we've completely obliterated in the region. And so there really is not a military power in the area that can stand up to Israel's Greater Israel Project, except for the military power of Iran. They are the last piece that is standing in the way of Greater Israel. Interestingly, now that Israel kind of thinks that they're getting rid of Iran, it looks like their next target on their list is going to be Turkey, which is kind of insane. But be on the lookout for weird Israeli aggressive language towards Turkey in the future. But Israel sees Iran as the last real obstacle to the Greater Israel Project in the region, and so has wanted the destruction of Iran for years. So Donald Trump is working in the Middle East right now against his own interests, against the interests of our allies in the region, and certainly against the interests of Iran, solely to benefit the most insane zealots in Israeli government right now. So people speculate that maybe it just doesn't make sense to so many people why Donald Trump would be so on board with this, but he is. If they've called themselves Ham, Israel wouldn't be able to step foot there, right? But Israel descends from Shem, not Ham. So, which interestingly is where the Blaine, tell us what to do. There is nothing to do. What's happening? No. The Semites in the word Semite, the Sem prefix there is a transliteration, I don't know what you would call it, of the word Shem. It was an unclear joke. Okay, thank you. Unclean. I get you. The U.S. launched tons of attacks against Iran. We've talked about the outcomes of some of those attacks. Now, over 100 children are dead in these elementary schools that were maybe not targeted, but certainly struck by either the United States or Israel. It seems like the United States has killed Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the religious and political leader of Iran, has killed the Iranian Minister of Defense, and has killed several of the family members of the Ayatollah Khamenei, and is working to attack and dismantle military infrastructure in Iran. But we don't have a lot of footage of those attacks because they happened very abruptly and suddenly. We do have a lot of footage of the Iranian retaliation, so we're going to look at some of the most insane footage that I've been able to find and authenticate from what I believe are reliable sources, of the Iranian retaliation. To give you an idea of how costly this is going to be if we keep up the same amount of military pressure on Iran, and they keep on retaliating at this level or even a greater level. Like I said, the Iranian government has come out and said that everything that they've struck everybody with today was just like their cheap, second-rate, not highly sophisticated munitions. It's Kevin, not highly sophisticated munitions. Iran has said that that's what they use to strike everybody today, and that they have more powerful, more sophisticated arms that they plan on striking everybody with in the future if they keep on, if the United States and Israel keeps on attacking Iran. Radiant says, take care of your health and love your neighbor. Kevin says, I'm looking forward to going to one of those apocalyptic rooftop parties like in Independence Day. Yeah, that'll be fun. Will says, oh yay, Blaine is streaming. Let me see what game he's playing. War Games is a great movie, and is also probably on the horizon, given that we were talking earlier about how one of Anthropic's red lines was that we don't want our AI to be used to target people. And the Department of Defense was like, well, that's unacceptable to us. You have to let us use your AI to target people. And so now Anthropic is blacklisted because they had the audacity to say we should not allow AI to autonomously target and kill people. So maybe War Games is sooner than we think. Now we're at the portion where we're going to be looking at a lot of the Iranian retaliation from sources that I've been able to find that I feel like are credible. This is from pretty early in the day. This is from Dropsite. They say, breaking. Iran launches strikes on U.S. bases across the Middle East. Explosions seen at the U.S. Naval Air Base in Al Jufair, Bahrain, confirmed by Bahrain. Alarm sirens followed by up to 4 explosions in Kuwait. Massive explosions reported in Abu Dhabi. In Qatar, an official source at the Ministry of Defense told Al Jazeera that an Iranian missile was intercepted by the Patriot air defense system. Iran had warned that any U.S. attack would be met with attacks on American bases and interests across the region, with the goal of killing a minimum of 500 American soldiers. I have not seen any reliable death count of Americans anywhere today yet, but I'm sure that those numbers will start coming in, unfortunately. Yeah, now give that Marine back a video game controller so he can target more kids, they'll say. Yeah. So yeah, this is an Iranian missile striking a U.S. naval base in Bahrain. This is a really important naval air base right in the middle of the Persian Gulf, for supplying our ships that are in the area. And it also housed a really important radar system that cost like over $1 billion. It's one of the most expensive, sophisticated radar systems in the world. And seemingly this attack on this naval airbase in Bahrain destroyed that radar system, which is awesome. That's crazy. $1.1 billion just vaporized is wild. It seems like the United States kind of expected that kind of thing would happen. Without that radar system, we would be pretty blind. It was really important for like early warning systems for detecting rocket launches from far away. We now have these planes called E3s that are in the region doing AWACS, which is like aerial radar. So that like, because this radar system in Bahrain that was destroyed, because it was destroyed, we no longer would no longer have eyes to detect incoming missiles early. But now that we have multiple E3 AWACS planes in the area, we still have those radar systems in place. So like I said, it seems like the United States knew that $1.1 billion radar facility was probably going to be one of the first things targeted. Why we didn't have missiles that were able to intercept the Iranian missiles that hit that radar facility. I don't know. We're gonna see. So really popular now are Iranian Shahed drones, Shahed 139 or something like that. Drones, which are autonomously piloted aircraft that are equipped with explosives. This is one of the big things that Iran has been providing to Russia to use in Ukraine. And these drones are slow. Like there are reports in Ukraine of Ukrainians downing these Shahed drones using like AK-47s. So why it seems like Shaheds were like the big things that were responsible for the destruction of this highly expensive radar facility. Why we were not able to intercept and destroy those, I don't know. This is that naval airbase being attacked. This is another angle of that same naval airbase. Huge fire in Bahrain. Does not look very good. This is one of those Shaheds. You can see it come in. And people are pretty sure that this is that expensive radar facility that's being attacked in Bahrain. Like I said, you can see how slowly it's moving. I don't know why U.S. intercepting technologies are not capable of stopping this armed drone from hitting this airbase, from hitting this naval base. And it does lend credence to the idea that Iranians are really using kind of their low-tier arms in this first salvo, and reserving their more sophisticated high-tech arms for future salvos. It's the last day of February. They probably spent tariff money, which is part of him doubling down. Yeah. This is also that same naval airbase in Bahrain. I don't think that this is the same strike. Jesus Christ, it looks bad. I can't imagine how people are, unless the entire naval base has been evacuated, I can't imagine how people are not dead here. Crazy footage coming out of the Iranian retaliation on U.S. forces in the area. This is filmed by a U.S. Sailor in Bahrain.
Oh my god.
At the same naval airbase.
Dude, fuck me. A fucking missile actually got through. Oh, there's more.
Actually got through. Like, he seems surprised.
Bro. Oh shit. Oh fuck.
He seems surprised that the Iranian munitions were capable of getting through that base's interceptor technology. I am also surprised by that. I don't know why that would be the case. This is a crazy one. So this is also in Bahrain. Look at this. This is another Shahed hitting one of these high-rise towers. I think this is a hotel. Jesus, that's crazy, dog. And this is just, like I said, this is just the first salvo of Iran's retaliation. It can and will get worse than this if the United States does not stop striking Iran right now. This is cell phone footage showing an Iranian Shahed 136 striking a high-rise residential building earlier tonight in Bahrain. Yeah, crazy footage. This is another one. This is Dubai now. Dubai has been hit particularly hard. Dubai is a huge nexus of Western capital in the MENA region. And so has been seen by a lot of governments and forces in the MENA region as a collaborative city with the West and with the United States. And so Iran seems to be trying to send a very strong message here that they can hit not just United States military personnel, but can make it hurt for American financial institutions in the UAE. This is another Shahed in Dubai. This quality is pretty crappy, but you can see the Shahed come in and actually make impact on the ground. That's Dubai. This is also Dubai. This is a hotel. Yikes. And this appears to be a missile. This is not a Shahed. It's moving a lot faster. Here is some close-up footage of a hotel in Dubai getting hit with with drone strikes. Yikes. I just can't imagine how tons of people all over the region are not dead. This is the airport in Dubai, which this was much later in the day. Footage started coming out of the Dubai International Airport, seemingly that it got hit. People said DropSite originally reported that it was ballistic missiles that struck the Dubai International Airport, but later they corrected themselves and said that it appears to have been a drone strike. Breaking Iranian ballistic missiles have struck Dubai International Airport, with photos and videos from inside the terminal showing smoke and visible damage. The airport is now evacuating. UAE authorities have not yet issued an official statement on casualties or the full extent of the strike. But yeah, looks awful. This is, again, civilian infrastructure. Flights all over the Middle East are grounded. We're going to talk about the fact that Iran is seemingly closing the Strait of Hormuz. And so ships in the region are also, like, in ports. They are taking refuge, not in open waters. This is the Kuwait International Airport, which, like I said, here's some footage of damage at the Kuwait International Airport. This apparently was a drone that was trying to strike a nearby U.S. military facility, but the interception of the drone deflected the drone into striking the airport instead, and it looks bad. Yikes. This is Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is, right in the heart of Israel, and certainly there are lots of military targets in Tel Aviv that the Iranians might be trying to attack. Right now, Israel is under a complete internet blockout. Any footage that you see coming out of Tel Aviv is footage that the Israeli government specifically wants the world to be able to see. There is a complete communications blackout in Israel right now to keep assessments of Israeli casualties as secretive as possible. This is DropSite saying live video captures an Iranian missile directly striking Tel Aviv, with multiple cars and buildings engulfed in flames. Large fires are burning at the impact site. Still awaiting reports on casualties and the full extent of the damage. I mean, this is just...
The Israelis. I think that's what the calculation...
And you can see...
Regime...
Yikes.
Regime preservation...
You can see Israel's Iron Dome system trying to intercept these missiles, but they're just too fast. The Iron Dome is really designed for the small bombs and munitions that are launched at Israel by, these less sophisticated militant groups like Hezbollah or Hamas. They're not well designed to be able to intercept these far more sophisticated ballistic missiles, and frequently large missiles like this, especially launched by Iran, get through the Iron Dome. You can see it trying to be intercepted, and it just fails, and that missile reaches its target on the ground. It's usually the weekend these things have been happening this year, like a Friday night. Trump does that really specifically. Trump has stated multiple times that he wants to keep the impact on the U.S. markets as small as possible. So he wants to do something like on a Friday night or on Saturday while the markets are closed, so that by the time the markets open on Monday, they will have had a chance to kind of temper their reaction and not freak out and start selling stocks. So that's very deliberate. Trump has said multiple times that he performs these kind of military operations on the weekends for fear that the market might react negatively to the news. Last month was abducting the leader of Venezuela. This month attacking Iran. What will they decide to do on Random Friday in March? Yeah, we'll see. And then you can see, I don't know if this is specifically the site of where that missile just fell. But you can see massive damage on the streets here in Tel Aviv. I just don't see how many people are not dead after this. Dropside is reporting here that Iran's Revolutionary Guard has warned ships over VHF radio that no vessel is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. An EU SPDs? Aspides? I don't know what that means. Naval mission official told Reuters the strait is a narrow choke point, just 21 to 33 kilometers wide at its tightest between Iran to the north and Oman and the UAE to the south. Roughly 20 to 30% of the global seaborne crude oil, about 20 to 21 million barrels per day, moves through the Strait of Hormuz. Major exporters, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, and Qatar, depend on this single route to supply global markets. So you can see here, Iran controls this very narrow channel, and all of the oil that comes out of the Middle East comes through the Strait of Hormuz. The Houthis are the insurgent group that has control over Yemen right now, and they have performed a military action in Yemen. If you remember, whenever the genocide in Gaza was at its height, the Houthis in Yemen were boarding and seizing ships in the Red Sea here, and were working to strike Israel from Yemen. The Houthis in Yemen have announced as well that they are going to again start seizing ships here in the Red Sea. So very few of these countries, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, none of those have access to the Red Sea, but Saudi Arabia does, and so you can conceive of the idea that maybe they would try to transport crude oil across land through Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea to get it to the rest of the world, which would still make transport of that crude oil extremely expensive. But like I said, the Houthis in Yemen have said that they are going to start boarding ships in the Red Sea again. So both of the routes out of the Middle East into the Indian Ocean here are going to be blocked off. 20 to 30% of all of the world's oil, daily oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has threatened in the past to mine the Strait of Hormuz, making it completely impassable for a long time. There is no indication that they've started to do that yet, but that's not exactly off the table. So far, it just seems to be that Iran is threatening military action against any ship that they find operating in the Strait of Hormuz, which will be catastrophic for the global oil supply. So that's exciting. Next, we're going to look at some reactions from political officials, particularly Democrats who are the main line of opposition against Donald Trump's activity in Iran. We're going to look at several of the kind of top Democratic leadership and what their reactions have been. Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York City, who is just the most popular political official in the country right now, much less the most popular Democrat in the country right now. Zohran Mamdani says, "Today's military strikes on Iran, carried out by the United States and Israel, mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal war of aggression, bombing cities, killing civilians, opening a new theater of war. Americans do not want this. They do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. They want relief from the affordability crisis. They want peace. I am focused on making sure that every New Yorker is safe. I have been in contact with our police commissioner and emergency management officials. We are taking proactive steps, including increasing coordination across agencies and enhancing patrols of sensitive locations out of an abundance of caution. Additionally, I want to speak directly to Iranian New Yorkers. You are part of the fabric of this city. You are our neighbors, small business owners, students, artists, workers, and community leaders. You will be safe here. Strong message from Zohran Mamdani speaking out in support of Iranian civilians and in condemnation of the objective war crimes that the United States and Israel are committing in Iran right now. Representative Ilhan Omar from Minnesota says, oh no, I don't have her statement. Is this the one? Yeah. Ilhan Omar says, President Trump is unilaterally dragging this nation into an illegal and unjustified war with Iran without congressional authorization, without a clear objective, and without any imminent threat to the United States. This is a reckless abuse of power that puts both innocent civilians and American lives on the line for a conflict the American people do not want. As someone who has survived the horrors of war, Representative Ilhan Omar is Somali and immigrated into the United States from Somalia, fleeing political violence that was happening there. As someone who has survived the horrors of war, I know that bombs do not build peace or create stability. Military strikes will not make us safer. They will inflame tensions and push the region further into chaos. When we abandon diplomacy, we choose destruction. We know who will bear the cost of this decision. Innocent civilians caught in the crossfire and our young service members sent into harm's way. This is the devastating human toll of another regime change war. Already, children and families are paying with their lives. There is no moral or strategic justification for this bloodshed. The American people are exhausted by endless wars built on false promises and paid for with American and foreign lives. Congress must reassert its constitutional authority. We must vote immediately on the War Powers Resolution authored by Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. This unlawful operation must end immediately. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie are the two representatives in the House that were able to bipartisanly pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which is the reason why we have been seeing so many of the Epstein Files be released in recent days. And they last week authored and tried to bring to the floor a bill that would reassert Congress's authority as defined by the Constitution to declare war, to stop the executive from unilaterally drawing the United States into a war like the last several wars in our country have all started. Congress does not want that to happen. Democrats and Republicans alike. One of the things that has always been held against Congress members is their record in voting for the war in Iraq in 2003. And ever since then, they have very much ceded as much of their authority as they can to the executive so that they can say, oh man, you're dragging us into a war, without ever having to actually go on the record to vote for or against a war for the United States of America. Congress does not want that power, and so Democrats in the House have been working behind the scenes to forestall the coming to the floor of Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie's bill to reassert Congress's authority to declare war. Reporting from inside conversations happening among Democratic leaders in Congress is that the Democrats want to go to war with Iran. They everybody in Congress is on the side of Israel. Both Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are the leaders of the Democratic parties in the Senate and the House, and both have received millions of dollars from Israeli lobbying organizations like AIPAC, and so are definitely on the side of Israel and definitely want to see the regime in Iran changed militarily, but know that that is extremely unpopular with the American people, and so do not want to go on the record saying that they are for or against regime change in Iran, but have been working behind the scenes to kill this bill that Ilhan Omar is talking about, that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie have been trying to get passed. No! Lord. What was I saying? The bill was supposed to come to the floor last week. Now it's supposed to come to the floor next week. Very conveniently, all of a sudden, the Democrats were able to forestall the coming of this bill to the floor beyond the point where Donald Trump was getting ready to strike Iran, which has led to some speculation behind the scenes that Democratic leadership in government, in Congress, knew that the Trump administration was aiming to attack Iran this weekend, and specifically stalled on bringing this bill to the floor so that it wouldn't get a vote until after the war with Iran had already begun. This is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez issuing a statement. She says the American people are once again dragged into a war they did not want by a president who does not care about the long-term consequences of his actions. This war is unlawful, it is unnecessary, and it will be catastrophic. Just this week, Iran and the United States were negotiating key measures that could have staved off war. What is so repugnant about this specific detail that AOC is bringing up here is that the Trump administration, one of their favorite tactics for supposedly lulling their enemies into a false sense of security is to strike their enemies while diplomatic proceedings are going on. So the Trump administration in Donald Trump's first term used a missile to strike and kill General Soleimani, who was one of the lead generals in Iran and was instrumental in working with U.S. and UN forces in Syria to fight ISIS. I can't remember Soleimani's first name. But the Trump administration killed Soleimani in Syria during his first administration, luring him to the area that he was killed under false pretenses of having negotiations to, militarily normalize the relationship between the U.S. and Iran. The strikes on Iran, on the Fordow facility, and on Iran's nuclear facilities also happened in the middle of diplomatic proceedings where the Trump administration was saying that they were trying to negotiate a deal to keep Iran from developing nuclear weapons. And during those diplomatic proceedings, Trump bombed Iran. And now again, in the middle of more diplomatic proceedings, Trump has bombed Iran one more time. The foreign minister of Oman was one of the people that was working to help Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner negotiate with Iran on behalf of the Trump administration. And he came out the night that the attacks ended up happening, just a few hours before those attacks. He was on Face the Nation. I can't remember what news program it was, but he was on the news talking about how Iran had come back and had conceded to many of the United States' most stringent demands. They had conceded to demands that were over and beyond even the demands that they had conceded to in 2015 with Barack Obama whenever they agreed to the Iran nuclear deal. The foreign minister of Oman said that Iran has come out and they've agreed to these stipulations. And so if America wants peace is to be had right here. Like we are on the precipice of being able to solve this in a peaceful manner. And that was exactly the time when the Trump administration thought it was most appropriate to start bombing Iranians. So that's what AOC is referring to here, is that the Trump administration was in the middle of diplomatic proceedings with Iran when they struck Iran this most recent time. The president walked away from these discussions and chose war instead. President Trump flippantly acknowledged the possibility of American casualties, stating that often happens in war. Mr. President, this was not an inevitability. This is a deliberate choice of aggression when diplomacy and security were within reach. Stop lying to the American people. Violence begets violence. We learned this lesson in Iraq. We learned this lesson in Afghanistan. We are about to learn it again in Iran. Bombs have yet to create enduring democracies in the region, and this will be no different. In moments of war, our Constitution is unambiguous. Congress authorizes war. The President does not. I will do my part to uphold our Constitution by voting yes to Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey's War Powers Resolution. Every member of Congress must join us in rejecting this aimless war. This is Ro Khanna here talking about that very War Powers Resolution.
Donald Trump has launched a war on Iran. The Congress must reconvene on Monday to vote on Thomas Massey and my War Powers Resolution to stop this war. Trump says his goal is to topple the Iranian regime. But the American people are tired of regime change wars that cost us billions of dollars and risk our lives. We don't want to be at war with a country of 90 million people in the Middle East. Every member of Congress must go on record today on how they will vote on Thomas Massey and my War Powers Resolution.
That's Ro Khanna. Representative Ro Khanna has really done a lot recently here. Him and Thomas Massey together have done a lot to increase their political profile in passing really incredible legislation. This War Powers Resolution is a really important piece of legislation that both Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey are working to support, are working to get passed. But additionally, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey are the representatives responsible for the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That is the reason why the Justice Department has had to release many of the Epstein files here in recent weeks. Ro Khanna says Trump has launched an illegal regime change war in Iran with American lives at risk. Congress must convene on Monday to vote on Representative Thomas Massey and my War Power Resolution to stop this. Every member of Congress should go on the record this weekend on how they will vote. Now, we've been looking at a lot of up-and-coming political figures within the Democratic Party, people who, frankly, are kind of on the periphery of Democratic power, Democratic Party power in our country. They are the anti-establishment Democrats. And you're probably going to be seeing a lot of their names being thrown around whenever discussions about presidential elections in 2028 are being talked about. But here we're going to look at some of the more establishment Democrats' positions on what happened here in Iran, as well as a couple of the Democratic most likely candidates to run for the Democratic ticket for President of the United States in 2028. This is Hakeem Jeffries. He is the leader of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives. And his statement reads, and just you can immediately tell a vast difference in tone between several of the Democrats that we have been looking at so far and the Democratic establishment. Hakeem Jeffries states, overnight, Donald Trump announced the start of massive and ongoing military operations against Iran. The framers of the Constitution gave Congress the sole power to declare war as the branch of government closest to the American people. Iran is a bad actor and must be aggressively confronted for its human rights violations. No human rights violations on the part of the United States and Israel, by the way. Nuclear ambitions, which multiple times Iran has said that they have no desire to actually find to develop a nuclear weapon. They simply are desirous of the alleviating of sanctions so that they can more adequately provide for their people. Iran does not have nuclear ambitions. This is Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic Party, repeating the same old, tired establishment line from the Republican establishment and Democratic establishment that Iran is pursuing nuclear weapons and therefore our military against them is justified. Hakeem Jeffries says Iran is a bad actor and must be aggressively confronted for its human rights violations, nuclear ambitions, support of terrorism, and the threat it poses to our allies like Israel and Jordan in the region. However, absent exigent circumstances, the Trump administration must seek authorization for the preemptive use of military forces that constitutes an act of war. So Hakeem Jeffries' issue is not that we went to war with Iran, not that civilians in Iran have been killed, not that Iranian school children have been murdered by the forces of the United States and Israel, but just that Donald Trump and Israel didn't ask for the United States' permission before they launched their ridiculous and unjustifiable preemptive assault on another foreign nation, on another sovereign nation. Donald Trump failed to seek congressional authorization prior to striking Iran. Instead, the president's decision to abandon diplomacy and launch a massive military attack has left American troops vulnerable to Iran's retaliatory actions. We pray for the safety of the men and women of the U.S. military as they have been put into harm's way in a dangerous theater of war. If Iran's nuclear program was completely and totally obliterated by military strikes in June of 2025, as Donald Trump boldly proclaimed, there should be no need to strike them now. Equally troublesome, the advancement of security and stability in the Middle East requires more than military might, as we painfully discovered in several failed wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Trump administration must explain itself to the American people and Congress immediately, provide an ironclad justification for this act of war. If they just come and tell us why they need to go to war, we'll approve it. Provide an ironclad justification for this act of war, clearly define the national security objective, and articulate a plan to avoid another costly prolonged military quagmire in the Middle East. The War Powers Resolution, introduced by Representative Ro Khanna and Representative Thomas Massie, demands that President Trump remove U.S. forces from, and this is why they're so disgusting and conniving. Democratic leaders like Hakeem Jeffries have, for the last week, been working to forestall and block Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie's War Powers Resolution because they want Donald Trump to strike Iran. Here, Hakeem Jeffries is acting like he's all for the War Powers Resolution, and if Donald Trump just gets the permission of Congress, then we're all fine to blow up children in Iran. House Democrats remain committed to compelling a vote on this resolution upon our return. Ridiculous. So this is what the Democratic establishment's priorities are. This is Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate. Just covering his butt. Exactly. Chuck Schumer says, when I talked to Secretary Rubio, I implored him to be straight with Congress and the American people about the objectives of these strikes and what comes next. Again, number one priority for both Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, the Democratic establishment, is not that we should not be getting involved in a ridiculous, unjustifiable war with another sovereign country, but just that you did not ask our permission first and you have not planned the war, satisfactorily to our opinion. Iran must never be allowed to attain a nuclear weapon. Everybody knows that Iran does not want a nuclear weapon. But the American people do not want another endless and costly war in the Middle East when there are so many problems at home. This administration has not provided Congress and the American people with critical details about the scope and immediacy of the threat, confronting Iran's malign regional activities, nuclear ambitions, and harsh oppression of the Iranian people demands America's strength, resolve, regional coordination, and strategic clarity. Unfortunately, President Trump's fitful cycles of lashing out and risking wider conflict are not a viable strategy. How about the idea of getting involved in ridiculous, expensive, unjustifiable wars? Is not a viable strategy. The administration must brief Congress, including an immediate all senators classified briefing and in public testimony to answer these vital questions. The Senate should quickly return to session and reassert its constitutional duty by passing our resolution to enforce the War Powers Act. My prayers are with our brave American service members. Yeah. Like I said, they are so excited about the prospect of being able to go to war with Iran. Kamala Harris's statement actually starts off pretty decently, interestingly enough. But we're going to talk about my problems with the messaging here in just a minute. Kamala Harris has put out a statement because she's definitely very strongly indicating behind the scenes that she's trying to run again in 2028 for president. Kamala Harris says, Donald Trump is dragging the United States into a war that the American people do not want. Let me be clear, I am opposed to a regime change war in Iran, and our troops are being put in harm's way for the sake of Trump's war of choice. Decent rhetoric. This is a dangerous and unnecessary gamble with American lives that also jeopardizes stability in the region and our standing in the world. What we are witnessing is not strength, it is recklessness dressed up as resolve. Decent language. I know the threat that Iran poses. Okay, well, so you just completely delegitimized every single one of your criticisms that you said before. I know the threat that Iran poses, and they must never be allowed to have nuclear weapons, which they have said unequivocally multiple times they are not pursuing. But this is not the way to dismantle that threat. So whenever you say that Iran is trying to develop nuclear weapons and that they're a threat to humanity and to the United States, whenever you criticize Donald Trump for going to war with them, all you're doing is delegitimizing your criticisms of him going to war. You're saying that it's justifiable that he went to war with them. You just wanted to go to war with him in your own way. And you're just mad that he got to do it instead of you. During the campaign, Donald Trump promised to end wars rather than start them. It was a lie. It comes off a little CP from Jeffries, like she's for war, but in a different way. Yeah. It was a lie. Then last year, he said we obliterated Iran's nuclear program. That too was a lie. And let us be clear-eyed about what comes next. The president has already said this conflict may produce American casualties. Doug and I, that's her husband, will be praying for all of our brave service men and women who we know are undertaking dangerous missions with exceptional skill, discipline, and precision. Again, remember Kamala Harris's most lethal military in the world line. That's her priority, is for us to have the most lethal military in the world so that we can go in and do regime change more effectively. Our troops deserve a commander-in-chief who approaches decisions on matters of war and peace with the same steadiness and discipline our troops show every day. Under the Constitution of the United States, the president must receive authorization from Congress to enter war, but even if he had, that does not change the fact that this action is unwise, unjustified, and not supported by the American people. There can be no equivocation in our opposition to Donald Trump's war of choice, and Congress must use all available power to prevent him from further committing us to this conflict. Our troops, our allies, and the American people deserve nothing less. So, not great messaging from Kamala Harris. Still, on the war path, but, a little bit more decent than Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer. But the two main frontrunners to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States in 2028 are Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Let's see what Gavin Newsom has to say. Gavin Newsom's statement is, the corrupt and repressive Iranian regime must never have nuclear weapons. Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons and has unequivocally stated multiple times in the past that they have no desire to pursue the development of nuclear weapons. The corrupt and repressive Iranian regime must never have nuclear weapons. The leadership of Iran must go, but that does not justify the President of the United States engaging in an illegal, dangerous war that will risk the lives of our American service members and our friends without justification to the American people. President Trump is putting Americans at risk abroad because he is unpopular at home. The two frontrunners for the nominee for Democratic candidate in 2028 both are completely on board with war with Iran, just not the way that Trump is doing it. And nobody, I don't know what C/P is. I'm unfamiliar with that acronym. The two frontrunners for the Democratic nominee for president in 2028 are copy and pasted. Are Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. A war with Iran, any regime change war whatsoever, is dramatically unpopular with the American people, and they do not want it. That is the reason why whenever Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris are getting out on the campaign trail and being like, I want war with Iran just the right way, that's exactly why people don't go out and vote for them. It's the exact same reason why Kamala Harris lost in 2024, and it's why it will be very difficult for Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris to win in 2028 if they continue to message this way, despite the Republican Party's historic unpopularity right now. And then finally, we'll wrap up with another couple of statements from people who are kind of assessing what the plan will be after these strikes, where we're going with all of this. Aaron Bunko says, exclusive, this is for Reuters, the CIA assessed before the strikes that even if Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the operation, he would likely be replaced by hardline figures from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Again, these are CIA reports to the president that if you target Khomeini, it will probably make Iran more radical, more militant, more hardline, which will be more dangerous for our continued operation in the region in the future. So this is just dumb. Like not only is it completely unjustifiable, not only is it completely reprehensible and internationally illegal, but it's just not even a smart strategy. It's not a wise thing to do. This regime change war will destabilize the region, cause another migratory crisis just like Syria and Libya did, and will lead to greater radical Islamist militant forces in the region, just like ISIS and Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda came out of collapsed countries and governments in the Middle Eastern region that collapsed because of U.S. and Western interventionism in the Middle East. And then this is a lengthy statement from Fouad Azadi for DropSite about, where do we go from here? And I found it insightful, so I'm going to end with, this pretty long statement. Dr. Fouad Azadi, a professor at the University of Tehran, told DropSite that Trump's stated objective of regime change is unrealistic and will fail. He said Iran's retaliatory strikes were pre-authorized and designed to deter future attacks. On Trump's goal of overthrowing the Iranian government, Azadi said, they cannot do it. It's not possible. Physically not possible. Iran has a population of over 90 million. You cannot kill everybody. And all that attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure in Iran do is continue to radicalize people in Iran to take up arms and fight against the United States. The Iranian government is dramatically unpopular, especially right now, because of the objectively horrific crimes that they committed against their population in this most recent wave of protests in Iran, but they will rally behind the flag and will pick up arms to fight America when U.S. bombs are killing their children and their mothers and their family and their friends and their fellow countrymen. Bombing Iran will only serve to greater radicalize its population against the United States. It is objectively a idiotic, repugnant, and reprehensible decision to go to war with Iran. We shouldn't be surprised if our homeland gets hit in some way before the year ends. I hope not, but that's the nature of these things, absolutely. And honestly, it's hard to say. Certainly, American citizens who might be killed in some kind of attack like you're describing would not deserve that tragedy. But the United States is making a manifestation of that reality inevitable. Like, we knew that was a distinct possibility whenever we started bombing Iran, and we did it anyways. So in a way, how does the United States not deserve what is coming to it? I don't know. We have to stand up and say this is unacceptable. We're not going to continue to abide by it, not only out of fear and concern for the safety of citizens in Iran, but out of concern for the citizens of the United States as well. I mean, that's why 9/11 even happened, because of our actions in the 1980s in the Middle East. 100%. Ronald Reagan's administration was supplying arms to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, which eventually concentrated enough power in Afghanistan and transformed into Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And that is the organization that did 9/11. Like, you can draw a direct line from U.S. interventionism in the Middle East to people dying in New York on 9/11. And it is scary to think what similar tragedies might be in our future, because the United States is taking this ridiculous position that doesn't even really benefit us. The only person that it really benefits at all is Israel. Dr. Fouad Azadi also says, he asserts that Iran is not a regime that can simply be decapitated or collapsed through airstrikes. Iran is not an organization or a small entity. Iran is a serious country with a serious history, and we have seen aggression in the 7,000 years of Iranian history, and the aggressors have been defeated, and Iran has continued to live. On how Iran responded once the U.S. and Israel attacked, Izadi said, "The retaliation required no additional political decision-making. The instruction the Iranian military had was that once the U.S. or Israel attacked, the targets that were supposed to be hit were supposed to be hit, and they needed no more instructions." And that's what they did. And this is going to continue. Iran struck the targets that they struck. We saw the footage of Iranian retaliation within 2 hours of being hit by the United States. It is an insane turnaround, and it takes real coordination and planning to very quickly launch strikes like that. On the broader strategy behind the counterstrikes, he said, "The consensus here is that the pain for the other side should be strong enough so these types of attacks every few months are not carried out against Iran." He previously said Iran's military would seek to kill at least 500 American soldiers for any attack. Izadi also argued that the timing of the operation was meant to preempt congressional debate over the War Powers Act and foreclosed diplomacy. We had Congress people talking about the War Powers Act, so they wanted to get this started so diplomacy wouldn't have a chance. And this is logical because they're saying that they want to overthrow the Iranian government. And if you want to do that, then you shouldn't be reaching a diplomatic solution. Because if you reach a diplomatic solution, that means there is no war. And if you want to overthrow the government, you need war. So this was very much a deception operation. He's talking about, again, the way that the Trump administration has used a pretense of diplomatic negotiations to deceive their potential future targets and lull them into a false sense of security so that they can more effectively attack them. Dr. Azadi was on Al Jazeera English earlier this morning. He said, these are the people who engaged in a genocide in Gaza. They want to have Tehran look like Gaza. We are fighting the Epstein class that either rapes little girls or bombs little girls. Dropsite is continuing to track the regional fallout and the escalating military confrontation. So yeah, that's the current situation, but it's kind of wild. And unacceptable.